You're coming down on another Saturday morning. Very exciting. We're all checked in. Put this somewhere that you can actually hear it. We're all checked in, so you've all got your scans in front of you, which is exciting. I'm sure you've probably had a look at them overnight or this morning. They may or may not make any sense to you, but that's what we'll go through now. There's a couple of people that had a glance at them yesterday as they were printed out, and they were like, I've got no idea what any of that means. So let's take a look. So in the top left corner here, this very top section is our body composition analysis. That looks exactly like this. So this gives us essentially a breakdown of what our scale weight is. So the number on the very right hand side is our scale weight, what you would see if you jump on the scales at home. And that gives us this gives us a breakdown of what our scale weight is made up of. So down at the left column, we have total body water, proteins, minerals, and body fat. Body water, proteins, and minerals are quite common, quite highly correlated with muscle tissue. So the more muscle tissue you have, the higher those figures will be. Really quickly, the numbers in the brackets are individual to you. And so where you sit in that range will be individual to you. Again, being that these numbers are indicative of muscle tissue, the more muscle tissue you have, the higher these numbers will be. It's okay to be on the upper end or even over those brackets. So if you're over, that's probably actually a good thing. We'll go into a couple of variances to that theory further on. So total body water is the amount of water within the body comprised of intra and extracellular water, so water inside and outside of the cells. Total body water is approximately 60% of your total body weight. Protein is the main component of muscle tissue. So again, this is reflective of the amount of muscle mass that you have. The higher muscle mass, the higher amount of protein you will store, the higher amount of protein you will require. And this can also be indicative of protein consumption through diet as well. Soft, lean mass. Oh, I don't know what I've done there. Minerals, the next one down. Soft, lean mass, as we can see up the top, encompasses total body water and protein. Minerals comprise of both osseous and non-osseous. So osseous minerals is found in the bones, non-osseous is found in other cells within the body. So minerals is total body minerals, and again is highly correlated with lean mass, so muscle tissue. So the more muscle tissue we have, the more minerals we will store, and the more soft lean mass we have, the stronger our bones will be, which will increase our osseous minerals, so our bone density. And we've got that a little bit later in the scan as well. The very last row there is body fat mass, so that is body fat in kilos. Questions on any of that so far? I've just done all that. Beautiful. The next section down is my favourite section, muscle fat analysis. So this gives us a really quick glance at body composition and balance within the body. So the 3 bar graphs we've got there, we've got scale weight at the top. So again, that's what you see when you jump on the scales at home. The middle one is skeletal muscle mass. So that is the muscle tissue that we train in the gym. Skeletal meaning that the muscle is attached to bone. It's got nothing to do with the weight of your skeleton or bones. That is muscle tissue. And then the bottom bar graph there is body fat in kilos. The next slide here shows us what we're looking for in a letter. So a C shape, an I shape, or a D shape. So have a look at your bar graphs and see sort of where they line up. If the top and the bottom one are exceeding the middle one, you are a C shape. And it might not be quite, such a pronounced C. It might just be like quite a shallow bracket. The next one is an I shape where all of the bar graphs line up relatively similar. And then the D shape is where the weight and the body fat are lower in relation to the muscle tissue. So as we can see, there's a bit of a traffic light system, which is a bit aggressive, but the C shape means that in relation to your muscle tissue, your scale weight and your body fat are higher, which means that there is imbalance in the body, and ideally we're going to look to decrease body fat, which will in turn decrease scale weight, and at the same time you might try and increase your muscle tissue to bring that more perhaps into an I shape. The I shape means that there is no one area that is more dominant than the other. You're sort of uniform in balance, but there's perhaps time for a change and see what you could shift. So whether that is simply increasing muscle tissue, which is going to bring you more into that D shape. It might mean sort of where you're sitting, depending on where you're sitting in your body fat and your scale weight, you might need to drop those as well. So sort of just taking your personal scan into account as well. And then the last shape is a D shape, so that's where your scale weight and your body fat are lower in relation to a high amount of muscle tissue. So that's a well-trained person, someone that is leaner and there isn't necessarily anything to shift. So that's, I guess, the green light, the ideal shape to be is towards that D shape. Any questions there? Like I said, this is probably my favorite section on the scan when you're looking at it, because this, you can have a look at that immediately and sort of see any shifts in your composition and your balance just from these 3 bar graphs. Cool. I guess in regards to setting goals and the challenge, if you are quite a strong C shape, you're likely possibly not going to get to a D shape by the end of the challenge. But it might just be that you're aiming to shorten that C and it's quite a shallow C, or aiming to get to an I. So definitely don't aim for a D if that's unachievable for you. The next one down, that's a little bit different, is we see calculated analysis. And these are 2 formulas. You'll see that I have bolded, underlined, and italics this because they are formula based. So take these both with a grain of salt. BMI is rubbish because it doesn't take into account everything that we've just seen here. So it is a formula based on height and weight. It doesn't take into account muscle mass, proteins, waters, everything else that we've just had a look at. So take that with a grain of salt. Body fat percentage is the ratio of body fat to total body weight. Again, it is formula based. So if you gain scale weight, whether that is in muscle tissue, whether that is in water, it will shift your body fat percentage, but it doesn't necessarily mean you have lost or gained body fat. But it is as pretty much as accurate as we can get into tracking body fat percentage. So that one is pretty spot on. Cool. Next one down is segmental lean analysis. So this gives us a breakdown of muscle tissue in the 5 cylinders. So the InBody machine tracks us in the 5 cylinders, so both arms, both legs, and the trunk. And so this segmental lean analysis gives us a breakdown of the muscle tissue in those 5 trunks, 5 cylinders. What we look for here is a couple of things. Obviously, lean tissue, so how much muscle tissue we've got in the 5 cylinders. The top bar graph being in kilos, the bottom bar graph being as a percentage. The percentage is if 100% was ideal, so 100% or higher is great. In relation to your body weight. So what we look for here again is tissue. So looking for future scans, we're looking at tissue growth. We're also looking for balance. So it is quite normal and common to have a slight variance between both arms, both legs, as long as the variance is not too great. So the percentage, so the bottom bar graph for each of the, so let's look, if we're looking at the arms and the legs, we want the percentage to be anything less than 3% difference. If there's a greater variance, it could mean if you've got any injury, or if you've got any hardware, so if you've got screws, plates, anything like that, it could throw off the balance as well. So if there is a huge variance and you're like, I've got no idea, perhaps come and see us. But yeah, if that percentage is anywhere less than 3%, you're fine. And then the figure down the side is ECW ratio for the 5 cylinders. So that is the balance between extracellular water, so water outside of the cells, and total body water. If that is elevated, that could be indicative of swelling. So again, any injury or edema. And again, we're looking for balance. So as long as they're around the same figure, we should be all good there. Next one down is what I just mentioned, so ECW ratio, but for the whole body. So that is the balance between extracellular water, water that's outside of the cells, and total body water. It indicates swelling in the body, either a specific area, so that might be an injury, or the entire body, often seen in obese individuals. So if that is high or elevated, it could be that there's a higher amount of extracellular water, water that's outside of the cells. If you notice an increase in the extracellular water, but not in the intracellular water, which we'll come to over here, it could be the presence of internal swelling or inflammation. That's something that you should monitor and check out. Next one down is body composition history. So at the moment, unless you have had scans with us in the past, you will likely have one row of dots, and that's your scan for yesterday. If you come the 4-week mark, you'll have your next row of dots, and it will display as a bar graph to track your changes through those these four those four stats there. Moving up to the top right, we have an InBody score. Essentially, it is simply a score out of 100. So it takes all of your data into account and it gives you a score out of 100. 69 or less is a potentially out of balance person in regards to the muscle to fat ratio, so what we've seen over here, and it requires nutrition or exercise intervention. 70 to 79 is reasonably balanced, an average person. 80 to 84 is someone who generally lives a healthy and active lifestyle, and then 85 plus is a well-trained individual with a well-balanced body, and someone likely with a higher amount of muscle mass can be over 100, and that's totally fine. Good. So again, this is a figure that we use when we track stats at the end of the challenge and throughout the challenge. So another great number to have a look at when you get your scans, just a number to track for future scans as well. Next one down is a pretty important one, visceral fat area. So visceral fat is the dangerous fat that sits deep in around our organs. We have two types of fat: subcutaneous fat, which sits underneath the skin, and then the visceral fat sits deep around the organs. The number that you see, so this little target is you. Along the bottom here is age. So obviously, depending on your age, you'll slide across here. And then area is up the side. So your little target is here, and the figure here is in centimeters squared. We want to aim to be below this 100 horizontal line and in the grey shaded area. Visceral fat is heavily influenced by cardio, exercise, and nutrition. So we do track this again. We track this with the results at the end of the challenge to monitor visceral fat. So keeping an eye on that one is really important. Next one down is weight control. And again, I'm going to say take this with a grain of salt. But use it as a loose goal to begin making some changes as to what is displayed here. I've never done a scan with somebody and said, yes, you need to get to that goal weight, because the machine doesn't know you. It doesn't know the way that you train. It doesn't know your goals. It doesn't know you. So take it with a grain of salt. But the important thing that it is telling you is what needs to shift. So if you need to lose body fat, it will tell you how much body fat you need to lose to come back into a normal range. If you need to gain muscle, it will tell you how much muscle you need to gain to be in a normal range as well. So take it with a grain of salt. And again, if you see a goal weight there, I would be very surprised if anyone should be at that goal weight. So don't listen to that. And if you have questions, if you're like, this goal weight says that I need to be at this, come and see us. Please don't be deterred by that goal weight or think that that's the holy grail, because 9 times out of 10 it's not. Next one down is segmental fat analysis. So similar to what we've seen over here with the lean analysis, this gives us a breakdown of body fat in the 5 cylinders, so both arms, both legs, and the trunk. The percentage so the figure on the left-hand side is in kilos. So again, we're looking for balance, making sure we're relatively balanced with fat distribution in both arms, both legs. We will naturally hold most of our body fat in our trunk, so it's normal to see that is higher than the rest. And the percentage on the right-hand side is if 100% was ideal for you. So less than 100% means less fat mass in that area. More than 100% is a higher fat mass in that area, with 100% being ideal for your body weight. Next one down, we have a bunch of research parameters. So intracellular water, we've sort of talked about, is water that sits within the cells. Muscle cells are muscles are cells. So high amounts of muscle mass means that we will hold on to, or we've got a higher amount of intracellular water. Normal is ideal. However, high skeletal muscle mass should push it over the range. So again, if you're over that bracket or on the higher end, that's totally fine. Extracellular water is water that sits outside of the cells, so underneath the skin. The distribution of fat around the body and highlights where the fat is predominantly located. Again, it is sort of indicative or correlated with muscle tissue. So the more muscle we've got, the more water we'll hold on to. And again, it's okay to be in that upper end. Also is reflective of hydration. So if you're well hydrated, that is likely going to be higher as well. This next one is pretty important. Basal metabolic rate is the minimum amount of energy your body requires to survive at complete rest. So this figure is what we have used to give you your meal plans today, and a game changer in the way that we have programmed the meal plan. So in the past, they've sort of been 3 categories, but not so tailored to you. And so we found that people were losing muscle tissue and perhaps not eating enough. Perhaps they weren't achieving their goals and dropping body fat because they were eating too much. And so we've been able to, Alex has worked incredibly hard to get it more, like, I guess, shorter breakdown, so less jumps. So they're a lot closer to your basal metabolic rate. So we have taken your basal metabolic rates from your scans from yesterday, and that is how you've got the meal plan in front of you. So the meal plans are all the same in that the foods are pretty much the same. Perhaps if for some of the lower calorie intakes, Alex has had to remove perhaps a snack or things like that. But what changes is the volume and the quantity. So perhaps, I haven't looked that in depth into it, but perhaps for a quick example, perhaps one of the lower calories might be 100 grams of chicken, one of the higher calories might be 200 grams of chicken. So same foods, but just different volumes based on your basal metabolic rate. To give you an idea of what basal metabolic rate is, if you are on total bed rest, doing nothing but living, this is that basal metabolic rate number on your scan is what your body would burn at complete rest, just from your vital organs functioning and living. Then when we think about activity, we're then burning more energy. And so when we talk about calorie consumption, we're making sure that we not eating anything less than our basal metabolic rate. And so that might be a surprise to some people, because you might have a look at yours and you might have followed a meal plan before that's 1,200 calories, or I've heard of ridiculous meal plans that are like, 800, 900,000 calories. And so we're not fueling our body. And so when we're wanting to optimize training, fitness, muscle growth, we're wanting to make sure we're fueling our body for that activity. So basal metabolic rate is there. It will likely change depending on how your body composition changes throughout the challenge. If you gain muscle tissue, your basal metabolic rate will increase, which means you can eat more food, which is exciting. All right, next one. Any questions on basal metabolic rate? It's a bit sciencey. No? Cool. Waist to hip ratio is a calculated analysis based on fat distribution between the waist and the hips. The higher that number, the more uneven the distribution is between the waist and the hips. Bone mineral content, also known as bone density, is mineral content in our bones. Again, higher amounts of muscle tissue, the higher our bone density is. If you're doing high impact activities, resistance training, that is going to be your best friend for bone density. The last two here are a little bit sciencey. So we've got whole body phase angle, which is an indicator of membrane integrity and water distribution between the intra and extracellular cells. The average number should be between 4 and 7, but regardless, it is your number to be tracked for future scans. So just to keep an eye on, if it is over that range, it is not really good, bad, or indifferent, but just your number that you can keep an eye on for future scans. And then impedance is the resistance of the various low voltage electrical currents that react and flow through the body when the scan is conducted. The varied responses decipher the cell types, and hence it gives us our body composition analysis. So these are the different low voltage frequencies that flow through the body. When it hits a particular tissue, it will know that's bone, that's muscle, that's fat. So based on the, the vibration or the resistance when it hits that tissue, and that's what gives us our results. Essentially, the more water there is in the body, the lower the impedance will be. What we're also looking for here is that the scan has been conducted correctly. There's been no interruptions to the flow of the current through the scan, and yeah. Any questions? All good. Fantastic. Mentioned it last week, so a few of you may have it. There is an InBody app. When you do your scan and you put your mobile phone number in, that's your ID number. As far as I know, I've never received a text message from InBody. As far as I know, they don't spam your text message. It is just your ID number. You can use that to log into the app, and all of your scans will be recorded on there. So it is actually quite interesting. It shows diagrams. It shows a couple of other things that your printout doesn't show. And then future scans will be in there too, and you kind of can track your changes and your progress over time. So download the InBody app as well. It is free, and you just, I believe, use your mobile phone number from memory to log into that. Cool. All right, I'm going to hand over to Alexandra. She's going to talk about nutrition. Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Sweet. Nutrition is a huge topic, and I'll try and be as succinct and simple as possible, guys. I'm just going to steal myself a plan for later. So yeah, I was like, and it's such a personal thing with nutrition, you know, and it's a reflection of, you know, comfort. It's a reflection of culture. So writing that for, you know, 40, 50 people is really tricky. So you're going to need to tweak and modify, but this is a really good baseline. The way I wrote it is I'm aware like a lot of you either have housemates that you share food with or you're in a family. So I tried to make it a little bit more family friendly. There is a day with bolognese in there. And I'm also feeling the season too. So there's a few more salads. And we can talk about swap outs towards the end as well and how you can start to modify these things. And then partway through the challenge, we'll also release some extra days so that you've got more variety. I know a lot of you do FIFO work or go out bush periodically. If we were to say, in a nutshell, what you want to eat per meal, and I'm sure you've seen it before, is that simple, the hand gestures way of breaking down your plate. So relative to you, your own hand, your protein source, which comes from something that had a set of eyes. So it's meat, eggs, or something more protein-based in the plant world like tofu, tempeh, seitan, whatever it might be. It's going to be the size of your palm and the thickness of your palm. That needs to be on your plate for protein. The fat source, whether it comes from nuts, seeds, oils, butter, that's going to be the size of your thumb. And the carbohydrates, if they're above ground, like leafy greens, cabbages, you know, a lot of different things, it's going to be 2 clenched fists for yourself. If it's below ground, like yams, potatoes, it's 1 fist. If you follow that, you'll kick goals. And you want to have 3.5 times those meals per day minimum. And so that little 3.5, the half is your snack. Okay. And if you've got quite a lot of muscle tissue, maybe you're going to have 2 snacks to hit those goals. But if you followed that, and you've got like I know some people have to go to a cafeteria when they work out bush, you're going to pick from that. But wherever you can, watch the carbohydrates. Not saying they're nasty, we need those to function, and you're definitely going to notice that in the challenge because a lot of your activity levels are going to raise. Try and go above ground as much as you can, but don't fear below ground either. They have their place, and we've put them in there. All right, so the other thing I'm mindful of is that at the end of the challenge, you might not be using the plan anymore. You're going to live on this for the rest of your life. So I want to give you the principles that formulated the plan so you've got a bit of a concept in your mind of where to go from here. So these are 10 guidelines to keep you out of the doctor's office and looking and feeling your best. I've based these off of the work of Paul Chek, legendary dude. And I've been using these principles for about 15 years and they've held me in really good stead. Okay, so first thing is we want to avoid really highly processed white foods, white flour products wherever possible, white sugar, white table salt, aka sodium chloride is highly refined. We want to go for more natural options of salt. Don't fear salt, we need it, but try and go for natural sources. New Zealand source salt, Celtic sea salt are fantastic, and you can get that at a lot of the health food stores these days. Choose organic, unprocessed or minimally processed alternatives wherever you can, but in general, white foods are displacing real foods. There's a few instances where I've put grains, and we need grains for some B vitamins and things like that, so I've weaved them in there, but I've tried to go for whole meal options wherever possible. 2, if you can't pronounce the word on the label, don't eat it. If you really want to get techie with it, that you can buy food additive dictionaries. They're like these little manuscript books, and it can let you know what the side effects are. And if you can't find it in the most current dictionary, little food additive dictionary, it means it's kind of, you're the guinea pig. They don't know all the side effects yet. And it's really challenging for the body to receive that, try and work out what it is, and assimilate it or expel it. So it's just creating more work for your body that it doesn't need. If it wasn't here 10,000 years ago, don't eat it. 10,000 years ago is about the time of where humans started doing agriculture. This is a picture of a permaculture farm, so you can see different color gradients, you know, planting symbiotic plants next to one another so they support one another, and it helps minimize pesticides because it's not a monoculture that invites one particular species of insect in just to go and spray them all out. So yeah, if it didn't exist 10,000 years ago, it's probably a modern pseudo food that will displace your real foods and your body's needs. I think I'm preaching to the choir here, but avoid all pasteurized fruit juices. So any of the shelf-stable fruit juices in the lanes at the grocery store, just leave them. It's basically sugar water with preservatives in there. And they've been sitting in plastic bottles for months, possibly years. Go water. If you have to flavor water, try and do it with like a natural sugar-free cordial if you have to. You can get some great electrolytes now with natural flavors in them that don't have sugars if you're just getting a little bit tired of the waterfront. Moving forward, we're all drinking black coffee if we're having coffee. If you have to, a little splash of nut milk, a little splash of milk, but try and avoid the flat whites. And what else? We'll talk about alcohol a little bit later. 5, the longer a food lasts on the shelf, the more dangerous it is likely to be. If it's irradiated, don't eat it. So sometimes they radiate our foods to keep us safe, but it means that it's to try and keep that shelf life for longer and longer. Go fresh if you can. If packaged in plastics, the food will absorb dangerous chemicals. Try and purchase a popular brand if it's in plastics, so that you know it's turning over on the shelf quickly. You don't want something that's been sitting there for eons that's in the sale basket. Be wary of pasteurized products. A highly modified pasteurization process takes a lot of pressure. It often denatures the fats and the proteins in the food, so your body can't actually recognize it as food anymore. Yeah, and it's also refrigerated milk. It's illegal in Australia to sell milk that's unpasteurized for human consumption. So it's a curly one. Just focus on what you can control. So, and we'll get to that in a little bit, the 80-20 rule. Focus on the 80% that you can control, and the 20% your body will handle fine. It's just when we do those sorts of things like, you know, like if you were a real prepper getting ready for the apocalypse and only eating that food all the time, that would really put your body under a lot of pressure. But a little bit of UHT milk when you go camping, it's not going to kill you. Yeah. Number 6, which is in part A and part B, choose produce in this priority order. A, certified organic produce. B, organic produce. C, locally farmed produce. Tricky in Alice, but there's a few spots. The markets, I'd probably put produce Pete's kind of in there. The community gardens, growing your own, trading with friends, and commercially farmed produce as D. 6B, choose meats in this priority order. Certified organic free-range meat, which we can get in Alice, is amazing. B, organic meat we can get. C, locally farmed free-range meats. Harder. You need to know one of the livestock farmers, and when they have someone go out there and do that for you. D, commercial hormone-free meats, and E, commercial meats. We can go into the ethics of food. It's a lot to process, but essentially you want, if you're consuming animal products, you want to have an animal that's lived a healthy, free life in the best conditions possible. All right, water. So we need to be drinking half your body weight in fluid ounces a day. That's if you're working in pounds. And if you're working in the metric system, you need to drink a litre of water for every 30 kilos of total body weight. Minimum. And if you exercise for an hour in hot weather, which the weather is warming up, we need an extra litre. Okay. So nothing is a substitute for water. I had a client that refused to drink water. He said that's what fish pee in. If you can't see through it, it's a food. Store or buy in glass if possible. Choose the top brands because they sell faster and don't sit in plastic as long. Health-giving waters in general have a hardness factor of 170 milligrams per litre and a total dissolved solids of 300 or greater. Water with less than 300 total dissolved solids are what I call naked water. So that's if somebody has a reverse osmosis system on their house. And often causes excess urination. It's really depleting for the body and it disrupts your optimal hydration. So the way to get around that, if you have a reverse osmosis system on your house, is just add a really small pinch of Celtic sea salt or New Zealand sea salt to it. It's nice and pure. And that will help remineralize, thicken the water. You'll be able to feel it in the mouth, but you won't be able to taste the salt. I just said what was right there. There we go. So there are about 10 billion biochemical reactions per second occurring in your body right now. And all of these are water dependent. So as soon as you have a partial dehydration, this affects your body's ability to metabolize, period. And that affects your basal metabolic rate. Just a 2% level of dehydration will affect cognitive function in children by about 30%. And so that's why some of the water filter companies like Zazen have a school program where they put filtered water into the schools or a filter system to help educate children on how important it is for their cognitive function and focus. Cool. So we just want to make sure it's high quality. This is probably the best investment, best bang for your buck that you could make. Water trumps food. You can go without food for days and weeks. You can only go without water for about 2 or 3 days. Rule number 8. Follow the 80-20 rule or Pareto's law. So if you're following these principles 80% of the time, your body can generally absorb reasonable deviations of 20% part of the time. You don't need to be rigid, you just need to be intelligent. Yeah, we have a friend who was going to go camping out at Larapinta, and he's staunch health freak. And it was highly stressful for him to go out on this de-stressing trip because he just couldn't bear to have dehydrated food. But he's a young buck, he's very healthy, his body would have tolerated it, but he had to postpone it because he just couldn't handle it. So don't get too rigid, just work your way around it. I'm sure he would have been fine with dehydrated food for, I don't know, the 5 days he was going to be out there. 9, always eat right for your unique individual metabolic needs, and that's where we've really tried with this challenge to try and tailor these programs a little bit more to your personal basal metabolic rates. Although we've provided you with a meal plan, notice how you feel as you trial it at home. Kind of take the attitude of saying, right, I've been given this meal plan, I'm going to test it out. Don't take our word for it that it's going to be perfect for you. See if you can prove it wrong. Like really give it a good hard go and see if it works for you. You should have really great energy levels. You should find that you're more focused at work. You should find that your sleep improves, that you're waking up feeling rested. The topic that no one likes to talk about but is just as important, you should have a healthy sex drive. They're really good indicators because that's a reflection of your hormonal system functioning properly. So have a look at those signs and symptoms with your days as you progress through. And I'm hoping you feel great. But yeah, most importantly, develop a relationship with your body. Last one, respect food as a vital life force. It's not simply fuel to bargain shop for. So work within your budget. I get that. Food costs have gone up so much in the last 12, 15 months, right? So I get that. I don't want to add extra stress. So go where you're at, and then slowly over time, as you tweak things, it'll get easier and easier. And you might notice a reduction in food waste because you know exactly what you're eating for the week. And I encourage you to, some of you might be cooking for one. And so pick the days where there's freezable meals, so you can bulk cook those and then freeze them. And then it's going to make your subsequent weeks easier and easier. I have no qualms with you repeating entire days. So if you want to just, there are some people that just love routine. They might do day one for 4 days in a row. Great, you can do that. Do what you need to. If you can avoid it, try not to swap out meals just yet. Try and run with the program as is for 3 weeks, and then see how you go there. But if you do need to repeat days, no problem. It's nice and balanced, ready to roll. Okay, so meal plans are based on your starting basal metabolic rate. I've put a car engine here. Some of you are 2 cylinders, some of you are V8s, some of you are V12s. Basal metabolic rate refers to the amount of energy your body needs to maintain homeostasis, equilibrium, steadiness in your body. Your BMR is largely determined by your total lean mass, especially muscle mass, because lean mass requires a lot of energy to maintain. Anything that reduces lean mass will reduce your BMR. And this is frequently what happens with really drastic calorie deficits. The body has to get the energy and the fuel from somewhere, and it will take it from muscle tissue. The other thing to think of too in terms of maintaining homeostasis, if we were living in the Arctic and it was freezing, our body would be consuming more energy to keep us warm. So that will affect your BMR. If it's really hot and you're working outdoors as a laborer and your body's having to try and work harder to cool you down, that's going to affect your BMR. If you're in a really stressful period of your life and you're dumping heaps of adrenaline and cortisol into the system, which is basically like NOS, right, into your engine all the time, and you're like, you're chugging on your coffee and you've got deadlines, that's affecting your BMR. So there's a lot of individuality happening in here. That's why you need to be intuitive and get a sense of, is this feeling good? Am I rested? Am I focused? Am I energized? If not, come and have a chat. We'll change your plan. So the meal plans are generally what we call a 35-35-30 split. This used to be 40-30-30. I've made it more in the middle. And I've done that because you've all got really different genetic backgrounds. And this will give you probably a more balanced way of finding that nice middle ground, what's going to work for you. Some of us do really well on proteins and fats, and some of us do better with less of those and more carbohydrates. If you have more equatorial heritage, you'll do better with more carbohydrates, lower purine or lower protein meats like warm water fish, and lesser fats. And then if you're more towards the polar end, if you've got Celtic heritage, you're going to love protein and fat, and you're going to feel really good on that stuff. And then also you've got what's happening in your life impacting that as well. So I've gone more middle of the road to try and suit everyone. So that basically means we've got 35% protein, 35% carbohydrates, and 30% fats. What does that look like? 120 grams of chicken thigh isn't 120 grams of protein. 120 grams of chicken thigh is 0% carbohydrate, 4.8 grams of fat or 41% fat, and 15.6 grams of protein or 60% protein. And it's 104 calories, and it's delicious. A cup of kidney beans isn't a cup of protein. I blame Instagrammers. I do. 20 grams of carbohydrates, which is 71%, 0.5 grams of fat, so 4% fat, and 7 grams of protein, or 25% protein. So 110 calories, that's much more carbohydrate dominant. Okay, so some of you I know are vegetarians, so we need some options here as we're looking through this meal plan and going, right, what am I going to swap out? Did a little bit of research. So if there's any days where you've got like chicken breast or salmon, some of you I know are pescatarian. If you're pescatarian, that means that you don't eat land-dwelling animals, but you do eat fish and shellfish. That's a great option for you. Okay, pescatarian's super high protein. I haven't done too much in the fish department because of our location and access to seafood. A lot of you will know that I think Milner's get seafood Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays. I think it's 1 or 2 shipments from Darwin, 1 from the south. That's a great option for you there. There's lots of great stuff in the freezers at Woolies and Coles. So explore those options there. I've put it towards the end of the week, the fish options, because I know that that's when the shops are going to stock it. And I want you to eat fresh. Otherwise, yeah, if you're not pescatarian, tofu seem to perform really well. Silken or firm, doesn't matter. It's great. We've got access to that macro brand, which is certified organic. Tempeh does really well. P stands for protein, C is for carbohydrates, fats. You want to look at these ratios. I've highlighted these ones in red. Edamame and green lentils, I'd be really careful with. Have them, but they are also quite strong carbohydrate sources. So your ratios are going to shift a little bit. At minimum, if you're vegetarian, I want you to try and target to get 100 grams of protein a day. And that's your baseline. If you can do more, awesome. But if you hit that minimum, you're in a great space. Seitan, I've got a big question mark around seitan. I think it's just really similar to the word Satan. And I'm wondering if it's Satan in plastic. It's very processed. It is a derivative of wheat gluten. So when they get the wheat and they separate the gluten from it, then they process it and then they get the protein out of the gluten. And then that's what they make Impossible, Platitude, and Plantain. So I'm okay. The ratios look great, but there's a lot of processing there. So maybe try and limit that to 1 or 2 serves a week and not have that every day. Nutritional yeast is the absolute bomb. 47 grams, but you know what it's like. It's like eating sawdust. So you're not going to sit down and eat 100 grams of nutritional yeast. You're like, it's like eating dry wheat bix. 19.8 grams of carbs and 4.8 grams of fat, but you could use it as a topper just to kind of spruce things up, get that protein content up. You might set aside, I don't know, 10 grams, so that gives you an extra 4.7 grams of protein per day, and just use that as an alternative to some like salting your food. It is yummy, it is flavoursome. Plant-based protein powder. I was supposed to get the stats at work, sorry guys, but I'm pretty sure it's about 26 grams of protein per scoop. So supplementing as a vegetarian is fantastic. They use basically pea protein, brown rice protein, soy-based protein. Some of them do a combination. You just want to make sure that it's been soaked or fermented first so they can make it bioavailable. But those swap outs are great. It's actually really competitive, but the carbohydrate content is just usually like 2 or 3 more grams more per scoop. But yeah, the plant-based is fantastic. If any of you are dairy intolerant, the WPI, the whey protein isolate, you should be fine on. Even somebody that's not just intolerant, but just like they can't have dairy, they will be fine on WPI. But if you still find you're a bit squeamish, opting for a plant-based protein will be great. When I was writing this program, I was doing my darndest to not have too much supplementation, but it will involve a lot of chewing and a lot of meat. And I knew that it's going to be harder to adhere to. So maybe if that's something you'd love to do for yourself, make that a future goal. And I try to make this as adjustable as possible and not go too crazy on protein powders. Okay, proof, not all calories are created equal. So alcohol has a calorie ratio of 1 meal is about 7 calories. Give you some perspective, carbohydrates and protein for 1 gram is 4 calories. And fat is 9. So alcohol sits between your proteins and fats. And so your proteins and carbs and fat. It has a lot of other deleterious effects on our body's ability to burn fat and our body's ability to build muscle. And this is something that David Fleming noticed. He was the winner for the build category last challenge, which you might have seen the video in Jess's talk last week. He had a goal he realized that he needed to just minimize alcohol. He was wearing a Garmin watch and he was tracking his sleep quality. There were a few handful of nights where he had 1 or 2 beers and it impacted his sleep quality for 2 days. And that was the only thing he changed. And he also, and there will be subsequent things for that. Our body metabolizes fat when we sleep. So if our sleep quality goes down, our body's ability to burn body fat goes down as well. Also affects our cognitive function, and it has a whole cascade of effects. So it's not just about the calories. So impaired muscle recovery. Alcohol slows muscle repair and growth. Dehydration, it leads to water loss, reducing muscle function. I know trainers who refuse to train their clients if they've had a drink within 24 hours. Increased fat storage. Alcohol is metabolized first, causing fat accumulation. So it actually pauses your body's ability to metabolize fat. Can't remember the time frame. It depends obviously how much you drink and your BMR. Lower testosterone. So it decreases testosterone, which is essential for muscle and fat loss. It increases cortisol, your stress hormone, raises cortisol, leading to muscle breakdown and fat retention. Nutrient depletion. Alcohol blocks nutrient absorption, and which is needed for your recovery. It disrupts sleep. Poor sleep from alcohol affects recovery and fat loss. And reduced performance. Alcohol impairs workouts and overall results. We knew about that one. Actually, to give you some help too, because the thing is, it's such a part of our socialization as well. Things that I've found really helpful during both pregnancies is Bundaberg Diet ginger beer. I think it's got like 63 calories for the drink, really refreshing. You put that in a like fancy whiskey glass with one of those big whiskey ice cubes, and then a squeeze of lime. And limes you don't have to sell your kidneys for anymore. They're now $12 a kilo. That makes you feel like you're having a Moscow Mule. And then, or so I think, I've discovered a fantastic brand of non-alcoholic wine or de-alcoholized wine. It's online. It's a company called Altina. Check them out. The Shiraz is great. It's not like drinking grape juice. It's actually peppery. And I think their Sauvignon Blanc was really good. So that's another little thing for you there. There's some great de-alcoholized beers. I think beer, they've hit it on the mark, but the wines, they need a little bit more work. I'm trying to think of some other alternatives for you, but there's alternatives out there, and if I think of any more, I'll let you know. I intentionally made the weekend a little bit more protein and fats heavy, just in case you're having 1 or 2 glasses. But just know it's going to have a lag effect into your Monday and your Tuesday. Okay? All right. So in a nutshell, that is the plan. Now it's up to you to work the plan and put it into practice. And yeah, just know that there's direct swap outs coming. I don't think I have anything else to say there. I thought I'd leave it out for some questions. How are we going for time, guys? Oh, beautiful. I don't like to waste all your morning on you, but any questions? Yes, Mike. Oh, baby spinach. Lettuce, kale, any leafy green. Tomato would be fine. Spring onion, you could do a salsa. A salsa is really nice. Just like finely chopped spring onion, tomatoes. That would be fine to swap out too. It's kind of that more fibrous and watery vegetables. Just kind of go like for like. Yes, Katja. Oh, like plant-based ones or whey? I personally love the one that we've got, the Health Club one, and the VPA. We got the VPAN, stands for venom protein aminos. That's Australian made and Australian sourced and Australian owned. We have a really wonderful dairy industry. I know a lot of dairy farmers, but most of our whey protein is imported from America. And it's just really weird. Like, we do well in dairy, so I don't know why we're importing it. And so VPA, the owner of VPA was like, this is ridiculous. Let's get that in. So VPA is fantastic. They also do a plant-based protein. And then at GoVita, I found Prana On is the name of the brand. They're really good for a plant-based one. It's not too gritty, but the plant protein at VPA, I sampled it and I was like, damn, salted caramel's good. Amazonia. Amazonia is definitely one of those.
And I even found Prana to be able to keep that way, but the VPA is like the most comparable to whey that I've ever tasted. And texture-wise, well, it's a little bit, I guess, thicker than a whey protein, but it is like flavor and texture is more most comparable.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't have like, I look at the back of the packet and it's like 3 ingredients. So yeah, that would be my recommendation there. Yep. Yep.
Whenever anyone asks, which protein do you recommend? We always feel a bit salesy. Like, the one that we sell.
Yeah, I know.
But that is the reason that we
Sell it.
the ones that we sell, because we recommend definitely the VPA is probably the cleanest. Optimum Nutrition is, everyone knows Optimum Nutrition, the black tub with the red and black label. It is US. It's a great product, but it is US. So we recently started stocking the VPA purely because it's only made in Ireland. Really great price point, and really clean.
Yeah. Jonathan, did you have your hand up? No. Okay. Albert.
No idea.
I've not seen them.
I know a friend of mine has one, and I've never used one myself. I don't know how. Do you enter what it is that you're weighing?
Yeah.
Perhaps. Maybe.
Yeah. Amazing. Whoa.
Not sure on the accuracy.
Oh, I did want to really quickly mention, sorry, you've just reminded me. In snacks, I'm happy for you to break up your snacks. Like if it's like a mandarin and almonds and then a smoothie. You want to have the smoothie in the morning and then do the mandarin and the almonds the afternoon. You just do it whenever. You have it whenever you can get it in. If you've got a higher BMR, if you've got a 1,700 BMR plus, don't leave it to the end of the day. You will be so uncomfortable trying to finish that food. Get started early. If you're going to do anything, eat more in the morning. I should have talked a little bit about timing. But the most important thing is that calories and then the macro breakdown. Yeah. Post. I've written these so that you can just kind of cook in bulk. Most of these recipe makes 4 to 6 serves, and then you can just go divvy it up. You know your portion. Get your portion before the kids get in there, and then you're good. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. You can get both refrigerated and frozen. So I'm a Woolies shopper, but there's like big bags of frozen egg whites. That way you don't have to like give away all your egg yolks to someone making curd. My mum made a pavlova the other day, and I was like, "Oh, there's these egg whites." Anyway, and then there's also in the egg section at the top of the fridge. There's like cartons as well, but it's definitely more economical buying the frozen.
Frozen section in the frozen berries section.
The fruit, yeah.
Pouch and a blue pouch.
Has it got like the people flexing?
Yeah. That is definitely the most economical.
Pardon? if you have a look in the egg white, if you've got an egg in there, it basically the egg white is predominantly protein. Egg yolk has fats, which I don't want to demonize fats, and if I could fit a whole egg in there, I would. As you move to the more petite frames, you've got to really tweak things to try and get the ratios right. And so that's where I've used egg whites there instead. Yeah. It's fine once you cook it. I have to do that. I'm a lower BMR, so it's also good. And I suspect it's probably probably a factory making cream curd or something like that, and then they've got all these excess egg whites that they don't need to use, so they sell that off to balance out their profits. I think it'd be pretty safe. I think you'd be safe to swap that out for light rye or wholemeal. That'd be totally fine. But go 1 slice for your BMR instead of 2. Yep. Cheyenne. Yep. I would say like this sounds weird. Australian fare and Asian fare is much easier to work around. Going back to the same, the protein, serving sizes of the hand, the carbohydrates and the fats. Which is unfortunate. It's the more expensive end of the menu. It's the Scotch fillet steak. It's the barramundi. It's ordering those with a side of greens. I'd also recommend alternating drinks. It's the liquids that are the real killer. So go the glass of wine, then go a glass of water and alternate that way. Or if you can minimize that as much as possible. And crowd out, get salads, fill up on, if they've got options like roast pumpkin, fill up on the fibrous vegetables and get a really high quality protein with it. That's going to be your best bet. And if you order dessert, just pull them and enjoy it. Yeah.
When I eat out, if I know that I'm eating out, when we eat out, so if we're going to a friend's barbecue or if we're going to the pub or whatever, typically meals are going to be higher in fats and carbs. And so if I know that I'm going to be eating a meal out, I will make sure I'm getting my protein elsewhere in my day. So I'm making sure that I'm definitely going to get my protein in my breakfast and my lunch and snacks. It might mean that I have an extra protein shake just to bulk up my protein a little bit. So that my other meal might be more carb and fat heavy. And sort of balance it out that way. But yeah, like Alex said, when you're choosing from a menu, it is likely going to be steaks, something with a higher amount of.
You're in the $40 bracket now, You're bougie like that.
I guess just other simple, sort of like common sense type things, like avoiding deep fried stuff, like stuff that is
battered,
processed, unhealthy. But also if you, like Alex said, if you eat out, a couple of times during the time, have some hot chips.
Yeah, you'll get around it. And the other thing you can do too, because I mean this is leading into Christmas season. It's going to happen. Have your snack just before you go out, like an hour and a half before you go out, so you're not ravenous. It'll just really help with your willpower. Yeah, I'd recommend that. Any other questions? Oh, actually, before you do, in the snack section again, sometimes I thought it was obvious, but then afterwards I was like, oh, it's not really obvious. Is it a smoothie? Is it a whip? You do whatever you like with it, because it's like mixed berries, scoop of protein, and it might have yogurt. So you could blend it and make it into a whip, delicious. Or if it's, if you see maple syrup there's one of my favorites is the frozen cherries. You put the yogurt on it. The yogurt freezes to the frozen cherries, and then you put the teaspoon of maple syrup on, and it's just divine. I like leaving that as is. But if you want to whip it up or you want to add water to it and make it a smoothie, you do you. Whatever rocks your world, have that.
Yeah. I just have anecdotally something that pops up quite commonly in this challenge is that people get these 7-day meal plan and they're overwhelmed. And they're like, there's so many ingredients. There's so many new things. feeling overwhelmed, like Alex said, and I personally, I don't care about being boring. I would pick one day, maybe 2 days for the week. I'll roll with one day for, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then I'll roll with a different day for Thursday, Friday, Saturday. However I work it. And so that might mean that I have the same thing for lunch and dinner every day. I'm totally fine with that, but it just means convenient, less prep. I can prep for 3 days in advance, and I know that it's there, and I'm not having to cook a different recipe each day. There's been other times where I'm less time poor or things like that, and I might be a little bit more flexible and day each day. But yeah, a couple of options there. You can either go the 7 days for a bit of variety, or you could pick a couple and cycle through. But like Alex said, try not to go, oh, I really like that lunch, but I really like that dinner, because Alex has done so much work in making sure that the macros are balanced. Swapping might throw the balance out.
If there's one meal that is pretty safe, day one, you've got the cooked skinless chicken breast, you've got sweet potato, sour cream, and a cup of above ground mixed vegetables. That, that might be capsicum, onion, kind of thinking of like a bit of a fry up there. Zucchini, delicious. Is really satisfying. That's a really good repeat meal if you need to swap anything out. Those really simple ones, because it's lean, it's not going to affect your macros in a negative way. I'm a big fan of leftovers, but I know not everybody is. So you'll notice the dinners weave into lunch constantly. And there will be days where you get home and you're like, dinner's not going to happen. It's going to, just so you're prepared, that meal, dinner for day one is a great lunch option. If you just prepped them on Sunday, 4 of them, let's say, and you have that for lunch just in case the dinner doesn't happen, I'm happy for you to SWAT your system, prep for shitty days. Do that. Yeah, Sarah. Mm-hmm. Yes, yes, yes. So all the meats are once they're cooked, not when they're raw. It's just too hard because, yeah, you're probably going to buy it in a 500 gram or kilo pack. Cook her all up, dish her out, distribute, freeze what you need to. Amanda. Yeah. Go for gold. Go for gold. And I need to get some combos. See you, Nick. I need to get some combos out there for you because there is some amazing stuff. Like on our chicken, we had like paprika. I remember paprika. It was like only 3 things, a bit of lime juice, and it was just so good. Yeah.
Any dried or fresh herbs and spices, go
as much as you want. Yeah, yeah.
A lot of you have seen. There's a brand called Seasoning. They're really good. They're really clean. They don't have a lot of like additives, preservatives, and things like that. There's some really good ones. I'm pretty sure both Coles and Woolies sell mixed and mingle seasonings. I was going to say something.
No, I'm just. It's eluded you. The beef rump and brown rice salad day. That's actually not a bad swap out if you need to. I'm just going to tell you that brown rice salad is the bomb.com. It is so delicious. These are tried and true. Like I've been eating these for like 2 decades. They're good.
What I was going to say.
Oh, yeah.
Another thing that we commonly find with the challenge is that people get a week in, and they're like, "There's so much food. I can't eat all this food." The thing with the meal plans is that it is high volume, high quality food, and high fibrous. So it's a lot of volume, perhaps compared to what you usually eat, which might be slightly more calorie dense, higher in fats than proteins, things like that. So if you feel like it's a lot of food, please just push on, get through it. Your body, it might take a week or 2, but your body will get used to it and adjust. And in a couple of weeks, you will be getting through that, and you'll actually be feeling like your body's burning it, and you'll be feeling hungry. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah.
I did think I should do that.
Next slide. Sorry. And didn't, thanks for changing that. I didn't mention this. So you guys, last point is that you're not eating the calories equivalent to your basal metabolic rate. It's your basal metabolic rate multiplied by 1.375, which is equivalent to somebody with light to moderate activity. And then I've gone with a 400 calorie deficit. But this will be a lot more food than in past programs. This is actually at a lot higher caloric levels than we've done in the past. Okay? Yeah.
Follow it, work it. If you get a couple of weeks in and you're like, something's not working, like I really cannot stomach all of this food, or I'm getting hungry, come and see us and we'll reassess.
Yeah, 100%. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. I forgot too. I'll try to distribute. Is anybody missing their meal plan? Yes. One?
Anybody missing the green journal?
Cool.
So yes, thank you, Trish, for bringing up the workout plan. So as you would have, activity. So current
Wrong one, right?
and the kind of activities we've been most recently doing. We have Alex and I have written strength training programs. So strength training is where it's at. So we would love to see everybody getting into the downstairs gym space and we also love all of our group fitness classes, any other activities you do, whether you do sport, whether you do mountain biking, whether you run, go for gold. But we would love to see everybody strength training to increase. And so based on those answers from your check-in, we have allocated a program for you. We have five programs, so you can absolutely jump up if you work for one for a couple of weeks and you're like, this is too easy, or I've mastered this, you can come and see us and you can jump up to the next one. I should have mentioned earlier before a couple of you have to rush off, but it was in the email today at 12, 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
Each one of our PTs will be in the gym running through these programs. So if yours says getting started at the top, that will be at 12. If yours says intermediate at the top, it will be at 1. And there is only one person that we're not here on the advanced. So 12 and 1, Kim will be in the gym to run through those programs. But also on the challenge portal, Alex and I have filmed all of the exercises, so you can jump on there. We've also got our YouTube channel, which I'll link as well, so you can jump on. Each program has a playlist, and in the playlist is all of the exercises. So you can, if you don't know what it is, jump on there, video of me doing the exercise.
And there's some really funny footage.
I don't think some of the bloopers made it.
There's like,
I improved it, so
but there's some stuff happening in the background. There's some special treats for y'all. Like, no.
Anyway,
Wow.
So yeah, work with your program. Those videos are there if you need some help on form and things like that. And then yeah, again, work with it for, we say 4 to 6 weeks, probably around the halfway point of the challenge. If you're ready for a new program, let us know.
Yeah.
Cool. I'll hand these out as we're wrapping up.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah, nectarine peach is similar and equivalent. Yeah, yeah, and stone fruit season's on the way. Just be if it's a starchy fruit like banana, it's not. Yeah, they're high fructose. Yep, okay. Sweet. No, yeah. Pears. Yep, yep. Ooh, that is a really good question. There are egg substitutes out there, but I think they're pretty processed. It would be like meat or tempeh or tofu, I would say. So you'd be like having like a nasi goreng essentially for breakfast. It'd be like a vegetable fry with, yeah, with some kind of protein source in there. I think that would be the best way to go. I was wondering if someone would have an intolerance to egg.
Is there a particular way that you don't like egg? Like, you're like, yeah, okay. Yeah.
You're fine to ditch those. I just know that. So the Saturday, Sunday, I try to make them more like traditional weekend breakfasts. So you've got like eggs and bacon, but you're fine to go egg white. That'll be totally fine for you if
Or
you
like,
can stomach it.
I know sometimes you get a bit grossed out by runny yolk, but like and if you're like that, and you're like, I just don't like the yolk, but you don't mind an omelette, you could totally make it up into scrambled eggs
Yeah.
and omelette. Just change the form. It doesn't have to be what it has in the example.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And they'll just decrease the fat ratios. The guys on the 1,300, 1,500 BMR rounds, your fat portions are slightly higher. It's really hard to avoid when you're going whole foods. But I tweaked it as best as I could. That's also really satiating, and it will not affect your results. You will feel great, I suspect. Yep. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'll hand these out, or feel free to pop up to me, and I will get these to you. Otherwise, yeah, jump onto the WhatsApp. You share any updates or announcements there, and on the portal, content resources will be coming out.
Yeah, heaps. Have a great week. Go get them. So exciting. Hey, Ruby.